Close the doors of your mind from all carnal will, all carnal thought, all emotions, all desires, all fears, all laziness, all doubt. Anything within the center of your consciousness, in the center of your mind, within the center of your being, in the center of your belly, in the center of your mind, it does not allow your body and your thought process and your consciousness and your inner being, your 12 cranial nerves and your 12 luminous centers, within your hands and your feet that control your body, within your yod and your kaf, within your inner man, with your inner being, with your innermost faculties of your inner self, in your liver and your kidneys, through your heart that pumps oxygenated and deoxygenated blood throughout your body, throughout your capillaries, your dendrites, your axons, throughout your femurs, throughout your cavities, throughout your joint and your marrow, all the way through your throat, to your neck, all the way to your mind, to your body, to the very separation between your left and right brain, your corpus callosum, and then your two eyes and your two mouths and your two ears. And bring your mind to balance, bring your body in subjection to the highest one who sits in the highest Shamayim, in the highest order, Yahuwah Elohim, who sits above the Shabath Shamayim, above the 7 heavens, the one who sits above all the 13 Elohims, who declare themselves to be above him, the one who sits above all gods, Yahuwah Elohim, with his son Yahushua, who sits at his right hand. So this Yom, this Shabath, we remember the one who made all of the har of the earth, all of the nahar of the earth, all the rivers and streams on the surface of the earth, under the earth, and all the rivers and streams on the other, outside of this world, even coming from his throne. The one who created all of the stones and all the different metals, and all the different stones and the gold and the silver and the tin that he put on the earth to be minerals for the ground, that it may produce fruit for human beings. But man has taken these things from out of the earth to formulate their own opinions and create their own way and their own way of doing things, and now the world is in utter chaos. But this Yom, as we move forward, we come to remind everyone of the one who made all things, Yahuwah Elohim. So this Yom, as we move forward in kindness, ahav, joy, peace, patience, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, right? We move forward in love, ahav. But that's the only thing that can conquer all and bear all things, and it never fails. It is not arrogant or rude. It doesn't even rejoice in wrongdoing. When we look at ourselves, how many times have one rejoiced in wrongdoing? Well, he said we don't rejoice in wrongdoing. He said, what are you doing with wrongdoing? You fall on the face and your face become black to the ground. You put on sackcloth and ashes, and your ashes be your bread, and your tears be your drink. Right, so this is Nazarene Acts of the Shalakim, Suggestions of the Old Serpent, chapter 17, XVII. Above all, therefore, you ought to understand the deception of the ancient old serpent. Right, he's the old Nakash, the ancient Nakash. It's a suggestive thought. It is a powerful, is a being that exists, and an energy source that comes out, and it brings out things within your heart and your mind, and can manipulate your flesh and your body and bring it to do things it should not do. And it says, and his cunning suggestions who deceives you as it were by prudence. Why? Because that's you. Right? It's you. He said, how do you know it's you? It says, as his cunning suggestions who deceives you as it were by prudence, and as by sort reasons creeps to your senses and deceiving you a great gain. So he say, so how does that work? Because we look at ourselves as a person that we don't perceive ourselves to be deceived. And you know the sad part about it, we are deceived. And you know what happens after that? We don't think we're deceived. And he said, guess what happens? This is the book of James. This is the book of James. This is the book of James. Let me get that right quick. This is the book of James. Sorry. The book of James, chapter 1 and verse 1. James chapter 1, verse 1. Actually, James chapter 1, verse 2. James chapter 1, verse 2. It says, count it all joy, O Simchar Akim, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your emunah produces steadfastness, right? Because that's one of the fruits of the Ruach. Why? Because you got to be steadfast. And it says, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Why do you say perfect and complete? Lacking nothing. Because you know what happens when you start lacking things? Then guess what happens? You lack nutrients in your body, what's going to happen? Things are going to happen to your body. The same thing when you lacking when it comes to things what you need to know in your mind, in your ignorance. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask Yahuwah Elohim, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. But let him ask in Amunah with no doubting, for the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. So you're the person that doubts. See, so who put that in you? You're that individual that doubts. You are that person, right? And here's what it says: for that person was not supposed that he would receive anything from you. When you have doubts within your heart and your mind, you are literally your own deceiver. He said, you are your own deceiver. He is a double-minded man. He's going to be double-minded because you double-mind, two-faced. Why? Because I believe, but then I don't. It's called doubt. And that little bit of doubt creates avenues for things that already exist inside of you to rise up and take control. Because doubt can rule your life. Doubt can rule your life. It can rule your mind. It can literally destroy you. It can destroy everything around you. And get what it says. He said he is unstable in all his ways, in everything you do. Whether you wake up, whether you eat or drink, whether you speak, whether you walk by the way, lie down, you rise up, whether you exercise, whether you the way you think, the way you operate, your empathy, everything is all unstable. Thought process, everything becomes like you're on a surfboard and you ain't got no balance on your board and you trying to surf in between the circle that forms and you got to get through it, and by the time your doubt won't allow you to go through it, and then by the time you done wiped out. He said, no, he said wipe out. It says, verse 9 says, let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation, and the rich in his humility. Why? Why would he say that? Because this is the reason why. Right? Right, so look at all that. Right, going to James 1:22, going to verse 22. James 1:22. Actually, go to James 1:21. Same book. Therefore, put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, right? And receive with meekness the implanted debar. Just like Ezra say, Nafash, receive wisdom and instructions. You got to tell yourself that. That's an affirmation you need to tell yourself every time you wake up in the morning. Nafash, receive wisdom and instruction. Why? Because it says, therefore put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness and receive with meekness the implanted grafted word. Why? Because the meek going to inherit the earth. That's what Yahushua said in Matthew chapter 5. His teachings, in Yahushua's teachings, you know, the teachings that surpasses all understanding. You know, the teachings that people killed him for. The teachings that the elders and the scribes and people killed him for. He said the meek going to inherit the earth. You know, that teaching. He said, receive with meekness the implanted word. Because it goes inside of you like a debar. So just like these words can go inside of you, Satan got a whole bunch of words out here that can go inside of your mind. And majority of it is against the debar. And it has many things that are attached to it. Behaviors. And these behaviors get implanted inside of your mind, get to your ears, your nose, your mouth. Why do you think you put it in food? You put it in words. Get inside of your body. Then it goes down to your kidneys and your liver. And your liver and your kidneys get messed up. And you can't process it, you can't filter it out. And then get in your stomach, you get a stomach ache. Then your intestines get clogged up. You got parasites. Then those parasites get in. By the time you got those parasites inside of your body, then your seven eyes went out. And then by the time your 7 eyes come back, guess what happens after that? Depart from me, I never knew you. Open unto us. Like, you didn't receive with meekness the implanted word, did you? Right? It says, which is able to save your souls, which is able to save your nefash, body and soul. Your nefash. It's able to save you. It's able to save your unseen force inside of your being. Look at what it says. But be ye doers of the bar, not hearers only, deceiving yourself. That's what people say. I hear this. Oh, I see it on the thing. I hear it. But if you don't do it, you're deceiving you. So you can also deceive you. You can have doubts too, which makes you like somebody. We all know about it. We talk about Kakash and Nukash. It'll make you like somebody. It has nothing to do with nobody else. He said you will turn. You know how people say shapeshift? Like the faster you speed up your molecules in your body and your thought process, and what you think about will speed up your vibrations of your body, and you will literally shapeshift into whatever you want. You will shapeshift into this. You will shapeshift into a doubter and a deceiver. If you don't have meekness and receive it with the implanted word with meekness, you will literally shapeshift into that in a twinkling of an eye. And it says, for if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in the mirror, your flesh. Because we talked about all flesh gonna know that I'm Yahuwah. Right? He said, you're gonna look at your natural face in the mirror, because that ain't you. For he looks at himself and goes away at once, forgets what he was like, because you go after your flesh. You know, these are the works of the flesh, as we spoke about last week. And get what it says. But the one who looks into the perfect Torah. Now, you look at it, say the perfect law, right? Perfect Torah. The Torah of liberty, right? The law of liberty, right? There's a different law. Declare freedom, Qahalath. Freedom. How are you free when you're in sin? You're doing sin offerings. I'm doing the goat and the bull offerings every week. You ain't free. You're in bondage. You're a slave to your flesh. You're doing the sin offering every week. You're a slave to your flesh. And it says, but the one who looks into the perfect Torah, the law of liberty, true, they want freedom, and perseveres. Like when you start trying to get freedom from these things and these people, and these scribes and Pharisees and hypocrites, when you try to get freedom from the controls of Satan and Satan in your mind and get peace again, man, you gonna have to persevere, because these people ain't gonna let you go. They're gonna feel like they own your life, they own your mind, they own you. They're gonna put you in handcuffs, trap you in a cage. By the time, man, you're gonna have to persevere. They're gonna talk about you. They're gonna run your name to the dirt. They're gonna bury you. They're gonna say all types of stuff about you. Oh, you're not worthy. They don't want you to be free. They want you to be bound to this world and everything in it. But he says what? Being no hearer who forgets, but he is a doer who acts. He will be baraked in his doing. You got to do it. Right, going back to Nazarene Asher the Shalakim, suggestion of the old serpent. Above all, therefore, you ought to understand the deception of the old serpent, Nakash. That's you. Your Nefash is older than what you think. That being that Yahuwah created on the first day of creation, almost 6,000-7,000 years ago, that thing is so old. It's so old you don't even know. It's something that you don't even know. It's old. It's an ancient. And get what it says. In his cunning suggestions, who deceives you as it were by prudence. Why? You deceive you. We just talked about it. If you don't be a doer of the word, you deceive your own self. Did Satan do the word in the garden? Did the Nakash obey the bar in the garden? No. He didn't. And guess what it says? And his cunning suggestions to deceive you were by prudence. That's what he did. He did it to somebody else. He himself didn't obey, and the Nakash didn't obey in the garden. And guess what he did? He ended up infecting somebody else with some doubt and deceiving them. Because that's what you will turn into. And as it by reasons creeps to your senses and deceiving you a great gain. It's like a disease that spreads. And guess what it says? Therefore, he enunciates in your mind opinions of Elohim and his commands and what he said. You wouldn't actually say that. No, he did not. It's all right. No, he did not. Of Elohim and whatsoever kinds. Only that your sins is his comfort. Right? Because once you get you comfortable in sin, this is like a person who just continually does things, and you say continually slanders, continually gossips, continually seeking out praise of men. Continually. trying to get some type of admiration in this world for gain, right? To look good, to make themselves look a certain way. He said, you continually trying to do it. Elohim, it says, therefore he enunciates your mind's opinions of Elohim in whatsoever kinds, only that his sins may be your comfort. For he, for his immorality, was condemned from the beginning to eat dust. For he caused to be again resolved to the dust him who was taken from the dust, even to the time when your beings are restored. Why? When you say you created after Yahuwah's image and likeness, you like Adam, you Damus Salim, you got the authority of the fish of the sea, the fowls of every creeping thing over all the earth. That's you. Oh, believe you me, Satan coming for you. He coming for you. Then the Chdsh is coming for you. All the people who don't believe it, they coming for you. When you start to say these things to yourself as affirmations, guess what happened? He coming for you. Who else he coming for? And get what it says. Even to the time when your beings will be restored, being brought through the fire, as we will instruct you another time. For in him therefore proceeds all errors and doubts. It all comes from you. From him proceeds all error and doubt. From you. From you proceeds all error and doubt. By which you are driven from Amunah, faith, and belief in one Elohim Yahuwah. That's all it is. He's just coming to drive you away and take control and rule you. That's why when Yahushua was tempted, Satan always tried to get him to bow to him. He always tried to get him away. He said, no, that's worship Yahuwah, and him only shall thou serve. Why? Because he was coming. That's what comes from him. Right? This is Nazarene Shalakim, advantage of knowledge. So we must, above all things, hasten to the knowledge of the truth. That as a light that kindleth thereat, we may be able to dispel the darkness of errors. Why? Because that's all a part of you. Because we are in darkness. Darkness is a part of it. You got to discover your darkness of errors to see order. You got to discover your darkness of errors to see order. Right? Go to Bereshit chapter 1, verse 1. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Bereshit chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, Elohim created the Shamaim in the earth. The Shamaim, that's the 7 Shabath, Shamaim, and the Aydahs, right? Some people say there are more than 7 earths. So he said there's 7 earths. But it says right here, the earth was without form and void, right? Tahu and Bahu, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Ruach of Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters. And Elohim said, let there be light. And there was light. Why? He just said, let the darkness of errors be dispelled. Let the darkness of errors be dispelled in your mind. Because your ignorance has now been destroyed. Going back to Nazarene, actually the Shalakim, advantage of knowledge, it says, for ignorance, as we have just had, it says, so we must of all things hasten to the knowledge of the truth, that as a light kindleth thereat, we may be able to dispel the darkness of errors. For ignorance, as we have just said, is a great evil, is raw. But because it has no substance, it is easily dispelled by those who are earnest. For ignorance is nothing else than not knowing what is good. That's it. If I don't know what's good, if I don't know what's good to eat, you think about this world today, all these chemicals and things they're putting in the food, all the things that they mix together in the sorcery spell, and you put it inside of your body, you rub it in your skin, you rub it on your toe, you do all these things, right? Not even knowing where it comes from. If you don't know, guess what happens? You just be another victim complaining about what you didn't know. You should. If you would have known, you'd have never been there. He said, but being that you ain't know, you become a victim. That's all you're trying to do. We're trying to prevent being a victim, because victimization has now consumed the world. And the only reason people are victimized is because they don't know. You can't be a victim if you know. You get what I'm saying? Like, you can't be a victim if you know. That means, he said you're a victim. That means you're stupid if you know. And you become a victim. And you know. But it says right here, for ignorance, as we have just said, is a great evil. But because it has no substance, it is easily dispelled by those who are earnest. For ignorance is nothing else than not knowing what is good. Once know, then ignorance perishes. And now Now you understand it, and now ignorance is gone. I said, man, I know now. So it's just like you see a new car, a car you like, and then now being that ignorance is now apparent. I saw the car, and now you drive around, you see the car more. Because your eyes have been open. Your onion. Before you weren't looking for it. Therefore, the knowledge of the truth ought to be eagerly sought after. You got to seek after with all your heart. And no one can confer it except the Nabi Amam, the prophet of truth, the prophetess of truth. But this is the gate of life. And to those who enter in the road of good works to the city of salvation. It's a road of good works. Right? This is Nazarene Acts. We're going to get through a lot of books. Right? This is Nazarenes Gospel, Truth of the Nazarenes. Truth of the Nazarenes. Truth of the Nazarenes. Truth of the Nazarenes. Yeah. Truth of the Nazarenes, chapter 47, and verse 1. This is Truth of the Nazarene, chapter 47, verse 1. Nazarene, it says the Nazarene, Gospel of the Nazarenes, chapter 47, verse 1. It says, and when they came down from the mount, one of the disciples asked him, Yahusha, if a man keep not all these commandments, shall he enter into life? Then he said, the Torah, the law, is good in the letter, but more excellent in the Ruach. Is more excellent in what? In the Ruach, in the unseen world, right? And it says, for the letter without the Ruach is dead. Right, you can go to the Torah and you can read everything in there. You can do it by letter, right? You know how they say, by the letter? But if you don't do it according to the Ruach, it's still dead. It has no life in it. So how do you know that the Ruach, how do you know the Torah has no life in it? How do you know the letter has no life in it without the Ruach? How do you know that? Bereshit chapter 1, verse 3. And Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. And Elohim saw the light, and it was good. And Elohim, Badal, separated light from the darkness. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning, the first day. Right, going to verse 2, it says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness over the face of the deep, and the Ruach of Elohim was hovering on the face of the waters. Because without the Ruach, this whole thing that we read right here has no life in it. How is anything going to be created without it? I can read these words, but without the Ruach, it has no life at all. Right? You're skipping over. How do you know that? Go to verse 11. And Elohim said, this is the Ruach. Because remember, the Ruach moved upon the face of the waters. There's no life without it. And this is verse 111. And Elohim said, let the earth sprout forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its kind, on the earth. And it was so. Without the Ruach, this is nothing. You can read this. But if you don't have the Ruach on the inside of you, this has no life at all. You can eat as much food as you want. You can consume all of the plants yielding seed, herbs, everything you want. But if the Ruach is not on the inside of you, all this you're reading, and it makes sense to your natural man, but to your Ruach, it won't. It won't, without it. It won't even give you life. It gives you temporary life. It won't give you everlasting life. You need, how you say, the Ruach gives you everlasting life. It says, the earth, and it was so, and the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed by the Ruach. By the Ruach. Have you done that? By the Ruach? That's the whole point. By the Ruach have you brought forth plants yielding seed, vegetation, plants yielding seed according to its kind, and trees bearing fruit. Have you done it by the Ruach? Because the letter, I'm reading these words, these letter words, and guess what? They have no life without the Ruach. So either you walk by the flesh, or you walk by the Ruach. And guess what it says? Each according to its kind on the earth. And the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds. The trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the third day. And you say, have you done it by the Ruach? I could plant a garden. You could plant a garden and plant trees all you want to. Matter of fact, it's going to sprout forth. And you can't see how it does it, but it does. That's the same thing how the Ruach is. You can't see it, but it sprouts forth fruit. And it does it by the Ruach. And all this is a part of it. Going back to the Nazarene, after the Shalakim, chapter 47, in verse 1. Actually, going to verse 2. Take heed that you obey from the heart. He said, take heed you will obey from the what? From the heart. Why? You know, the parts of your body that you don't think about. You know, your heart, your liver, your kidneys. And get what it says. And in the Ruach of love. Why would he say that? In the spirit of love. All the commandments which I have given you. What commandments did he give him? You know what it says? It has been written that thou shalt not kill, but I say to you, if any hate and desire to slay, they have broken the Torah. He said, if you desire to kill and slay, he said, you've broken the law. And get what it says. They have broken the law. Yea, if they cause hurt or torture to any innocent creature, they are guilty. But if they kill to be put an end to the suffering which cannot be healed, they are not guilty. If they do it quickly and with much mercy. And people say, why he told you, Judas? He said, whatever you do, he said, go hurry up and go do it quickly. He said, do it in haste. It is Yahuwah's Passah. Because anybody who has a heart to slay, he said, you guilty. You get what it says? It has been said, thou shalt not steal, but I say to you, if any, not content with that which they have, gather lands or riches beyond their own need, or use, or desire, and seek after that which is another's, or if they withhold that which is just. How many people do this today? It said, withhold, which is just from the worker, they have stolen in their heart already. He said, you've already stolen. He said, you're a thief. You already stole in your heart. He said, you already stole in your heart. If you want riches beyond your own need, desire to seek after that which is another, you withhold wages. You gather in lands and riches beyond your own need. He said, you already a thief in your heart. And guess what it says? Already is guilt, and his greater. Guess it says their heart already, and their guilt is greater than that of the one who steals a loaf in necessity to satisfy his hunger. He said he just stole a loaf of bread. You up here gathering lands and all these things, and he's saying, you know what? And he's beyond your need. And guess what he says? You a thief. And here's this person worried about a loaf of bread. But here we go. We're going to get out of here, but that's not the reason. Going over to verse 12. Actually, going over to verse 8. It says, walk in the Ruach, and thus shall you fulfill the law, and be the substance for the kingdom. To the Torah, it says, to the law be within your own hearts, rather on the tablets of memorial, remembrance, which things, nevertheless, you ought to do, and not to leave the other undone. For the Torah, the law which I have given you, is Chdsh, just as good, and blessed are all who obey and walk therein. Right? There's a reason why we went there. All right, so this is the book of Psalms 29. Psalms 29. Psalms 29 and 1. This is Psalms 29 and 1. Tahalim 29 and 1. It says, ascribe to Yahuwah, O heavenly beings. Ascribe to Yahuwah kabod and strength, glory and honor. Ascribe to Yahuwah the kabod, the glory due his name. Worship Yahuwah in the splendor of Qahalath. He said, in the splendor of Qahalath. Right? So Psalms 29 and 2. It's that word for holiness. Psalms 29 and 2. Psalms 29 and 2. Psalms 29 and 2. The word for holiness is Qahalath. It means sanctity. It also means a sacred place or a thing or sanctity. It means dedicated, consecrated, hallowed. Right? Some people have an outward showing of it. They try to make it look like, oh, look at the splendor of what I have on. It makes me look like I am Qahalath and sacred. But it says, verse 3 says, the voice of Yahuwah is over the waters. Right? So we just read that. And the Ruach of Yahuwah was moving upon the face of the waters. Now, if you don't understand this, by the Ruach, it says his voice is moving upon the waters. And Yahuwah, Allah, and the Elohim of Kabod thunders. It thunders. How do you know he thunders? Yahuwah says Yahuwah over many waters. It thunders Yahuwah. He says Yahuwah over many waters, right? But it says right here, it says right here, that word for, it says the voice of Yahuwah is upon the waters. Right? That word for Elohim is all. That word for all is all, and it means what? Strength, mighty, almighty, his strength. And it says, the Kabod thundereth, Ra'am, Yahuwah is upon Rab, many waters, many Mayim. The voice of Yahuwah is powerful, right? Because that's all it is. But it said right here, this going back to verse 3. This is the ESV, Psalms 29 and 3. The voice of Yahuwah is over the waters. The Yahuwah of glory thunders. Yahuwah over many waters. The voice of Yahuwah is powerful. The voice of Yahuwah is full of majesty. Right? So he's saying, why would he say that? His voice is full of majesty. Why? Because his voice is Ruach. His coal is Ruach. His voice is Ruach. And get what it says. The voice of Yahuwah is powerful. The voice of Yahuwah is full of majesty. The voice of Yahuwah breaks the cedars. How does it break the cedars? How does he do that? And it says breaks the cedars. The Yahuwah breaks the cedars of Lebanon. He makes Lebanon to skip like a calf. He makes the earth skip like a calf, and Saron like a young wild ox. The voice of Yahuwah flashes forth flames of fire. Is not my word like fire? The voice of Yahuwah shakes the wilderness. Yahuwah shakes the wilderness of Qahalath. Why? Because it's an earthquake. It's like a thunderstorm. It's like a hurricane. It's like a volcano erupting. It's like the most powerful things that you all document, that man documents as something as so powerful. That's his voice, his code. And you know what happens after that? The voice of Yahuwah makes the deer give birth. He said it makes things give birth. You know how I say after certain months, it'll make things come out of your stomach. It'll bring forth children out of your stomach. That's what his voice does. And guess what it says? And strips the forest bare. It'll make a deer shiver and quiver and make the baby come out of her stomach. It'll strip the forest bare. And in his temple all cry Kabod. Yahuwah sits enthroned over the flood. And Yahuwah sits enthroned as a king forever. Right? So he said, right, so this is the book of Exodus chapter 23. Let me get into it. This is Exodus chapter 23. Exodus chapter 23, verse 20. Exodus 23 and 20. Behold, I send a Malak before you to guard you on the way, and to bring you into the place that I have prepared. And then what happened to Adam? Right, going to Bereshit chapter 1, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. It says that then Elohim said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the Shamaim, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So Elohim created man, Adam, in his own image. In the image of Yahuwah created him, Zakar Nakubah. Right? So how does he get the code inside of human beings? Right, this is Psalms 104. Psalms 104 and 1. Psalms 104 and 1. Psalms 104 and 1. Actually, yeah. Psalms 104 and 1. It says, Barak Yahuwah, O my soul. Psalms 104 and 1. O Yahuwah, O my soul, you are very great. You are clothed with splendor and majesty, covering yourself with light as a garment. Why do you think when Yahushua was on the mountain, his garments turned white? He said, this is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. And get what it says, stretching out the Shamaim like a tent. He lays the beams of his chambers like waters. He makes his clouds, his chariots, Abraku. He rides on the wings of the wind. Abraku kanafalaku. That's what we just saw in Bereshit chapter 1. But guess what else he do? He makes his messengers winds. Now, by the Ruach, the Psalms 104 and 4, that word for messenger in Psalms 104 and 4. The word for messenger in Psalms 104 and 4 it says, he who maketh his malak. Behold, I send a malak to keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice. He makes his malak like winds. He will not pardon your transgression. It says, he says he makes him malak, a messenger. That word for he makes his minister. That way he makes his messengers. That word for messenger is malak. It means a messenger, a deputy, an ambassador. Behold, I send a malak to keep you in the way. And get what it says. In his spirits, it says, make his Malaky ruach. That's what they are. How you also going to do this? How you going to be a messenger of Yahuwah and you got the ruach? Yeah, what it says, he makes his messengers, his malak, winds. He makes his messengers ruach. Ruach. You got to use about a ruach. And his ministers of flaming of fire. Right here, his Shabath, he said a flaming fire. Right? Going back to Genesis, Bereshit chapter 1, verse 26. He said, behold, I'll send a malak to keep you in the way. How else are you going to do that? Right? This is right here. And Elohim baraked them, and Elohim said to them, how does he do that? By his messengers. That's Ruach. Because the Ruach keeping them in the way. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. He said, do it by the Ruach. You get what it says? And have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the Shamaim, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Why he just repeat the very same thing he already said? Because he got 2 or 3 witnesses. Let every word be established. And he does it by his Ruach. You know, by his Malaky, his messengers, his angels. You get what it says? And Elohim said, behold, I have given every plant yielding seed is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, you shall have them for food. He said, he by the Ruach, he said this. Because remember, Adam ain't transgressed yet. The Ruach hadn't departed from nobody. And get what it says. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the Shamaim, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food, and it was so. And Elohim saw that it was everything, saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning. Shishiyum. He said about Ruach. You can count the days of the week by your flesh too. He said, how do you know you can count the days of the week by your flesh? He said, how do we know that? Right, so I think this is the book of Nehemiah, if I recall. Yeah. No, this book of Amos. The book of Amos. This how can you say you can't count the days by your flesh? The book of Amos, Amos, chapter 8, Amos chapter 8, verse 1. Amos chapter 8, verse 1. The book of Amos 8, chapter verse 1. This is what Yahuwah showed me. Behold, a basket of summer fruit, wheat's fruit, pari. Why? Because he just told us we're supposed to eat the fruits. The seed, herb yielding seed, bearing fruit. He said that about a ruach way before we was even here. And he said, Amos, what do you see? I said, a basket of summer fruit. You better believe I do see that. He said, I see a basket of summer fruit. And Yahuwah said to me, the end has come upon the people of Yasharal. I will never pass by them again. The songs of the temple shall become wailing in that day, declares Yahuwah Elohim. Why? He said, behold, I send a Malaky to keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice. He will not pardon your transgressions. The messenger by the Ruach. It says, the song of the temple shall become wailing in that day, declares Yahuwah. So many dead bodies. They are thrown everywhere in silence. Hear this, you who trample on the needy. Didn't we just read that? He said, we just read it in the Nazarene. He said, you gather more lands and things beyond your need. He said, you a thief. You gathering way more than what you need. He said, you trample on the needy and bring the poor of the land to an end. You gathering lands and all these riches and money and everything beyond your need. And he says, you are a thief. And you want to put yourself to a person who's just trying to get a loaf of bread that day to satisfy his hunger, and he steals it. He said, you worse than that person. Here you are, got all these things, all the things you have, and here's a needy person grabbing it, he's stealing a loaf of bread, and you be like, you thief! Not even knowing you a thief. You got like 80, all these riches and money and lands and all this stuff, and then you worried about somebody stealing a loaf of bread and you throw them in prison? And get what it says. And to bring the poor of the land to an end, saying, when will the new moon be over? That's how you know you can do it according to your flesh. He said, I can't count the days of the year, days according to my flesh. He said, when is it going to be over? Because you know why? You're doing it according to your flesh. When will the new moon be over? The new month. You know how I say new month be over? Because you know every month we always got to bear fruit every month. And it says that we may sell again. That's how you know you count the days of the week according to your flesh. Man, when this thing gonna be over? It's time to sell again. When it says and the Shabath. When the Shabbat gonna be over? That's how you know you keep the 7th day according to the flesh. That's how you know. Because you already worried about, okay, when this thing gonna be over so I can get right back to what I was doing. And get what it says? That we may offer wheat for sale, so I can get some gain. Everybody all focused on their own gain. That we may make the ephah small and the shekel great, and deal deceitfully with false balances. That's how you know your balance is off. People say, how do you know your mazon is off? Because you know mazon equals to 8. So that means if your balance is off with your mazon, that equals to 8. The bar equals to 8, and then Yahuwah equals to 8. And you know what happens to that? You have a relationship problem. He said, how you know you got relationship problems? You got relationship problems. You know, he said, I got relationship problems. He said, yeah, you got relationship problems. He said, my relationship is out here. You got relationship problems. That we may buy the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals. You got relationship problems because your balance is off. You say you serve Yahuwah, you worship Yahuwah, but yet you selling, and you got way more than what you need, and you sell it to people, and you know what happens after that? You're like, you're a thief. You are a thief. And you know what happens? And sell the chaff of the wheat. He says, so how do we know all this, right? There's a reason to this, right? There is a reason, right? This is the book of Psalms, I believe. Yeah, Psalms. Right, this is the book of Psalms. Right, this is the book of Psalms. Actually, let's go to, book of Psalms. I just know a book of Proverbs. Let's go to Proverbs 22 and 1. Proverbs 22 and 1. 22 and 1. Actually, you go to Proverbs 22. Yeah, Proverbs 22 and 1. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. He said, you're a thief. He said, your name. He said, what happens to your name? Yahushua told you, rejoice not that the Ruach, the spirits, are subject to my name. He said, rejoice that your name is written in the Lamb's book of life. A good name is rather to be chosen than the great riches. He said, labor not for the meat which perisheth, but thieves break through and steal your treasures on earth. Lay up your treasures in Shany. He says, in great riches, and favor is better than silver and gold. The rich and the poor meet together. Yahuwah is the maker of them all, right? Verse 15, 22:15. Folly is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. He said, that's how Yahuwah should say, I'm going to beat your behind. He said, man, why are you always talking about this stuff? Because he don't want people to get off. He said, I don't want relationship problems. So you get false balances. How you say, Mazon? Your balance is off. And you know what happens after that? Whosoever oppresses the poor to increase his own wealth or gives to the rich will come to poverty. When will the new moon be over in the Shabath? Because you can keep the 7th day according to the Shabath and all these things according to the flesh. When will it be over that we may sell and buy? Everybody all focus on gain, and that's the problem. And then he always says, now you got false balances, Mazum, and now you got a relationship problem. It says right here, poor increases wealth, and whoever gets to the rich will come to poverty. Right, so we look at all that. So this is the book of Psalms, I think it is. What is it? Trouble his own household. What verse? That's in Proverbs chapter 11. Mostly Proverbs chapter 11, verse 27. Proverbs chapter 11, mostly Proverbs chapter 11, verse 27. Proverbs chapter 11, 27. Whosoever diligently seeks good seeks favor, but evil comes to him who searches for it. Whosoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like a green leaf. Isn't that what we in now? You know how when the green leaves come, that means the fig tree getting ready to bud. And he said, what seest thou? I see a basket of summer fruit. But he said, I also see people with balances off. Verse 29, whosoever troubles his own household will inherit a whirlwind. He said, how can you trouble your own household? And a fool will be servant to the wise of heart. He said, how can one trouble your own household? Proverbs 15:26. Mostly Proverbs 15:26. I don't know how we got over here, but we're getting out of here. It says, the thoughts of the wicked are an abomination to Yahuwah, but gracious words are pure. So how do we know gracious words are pure? Whosoever is greedy of unjust gain troubles his own household. He said, when will the new moon be over? When the Shabath will be over? When will the new month be over, the Shabbat? When will we be able to go sell it and get our own gain? Yahuwah considers that unjust gain. Like when you have a mind, your balance is off with him, Mazon, your relationship is off. He was like, that's an unjust gain. What are you doing? He says, but he who hates bribes will live. He said what? And he says, the heart the heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things, right? Why? Because when you start to think outside of what Yahuwah is established, and you're in the middle of serving him, and then you're thinking about gain and money, and what you're going to sell and buy while you in the judgment hall. And and it's your own money and your own business and your own things. And then you're thinking about selling things and everything after, like during his whole thing. You know what he sees that as? He said that's like taking a bribe. And nobody gave you any money. It's your own stuff. It's your own business. It's your own things you own, and you're in the middle of his thing, his Shabbat, his things that he has, and then you're thinking about, when will it be over so I can go sell and buy? You think you're going to judge properly within your natural self? Do you think you're going to actually, within your heart and your mind, you're going to actually be paying attention? Honestly, generously, to Yahuwah when you say things? Absolutely not. And Yahuwah says, you're taking a bribe just by doing it. Just by even thinking it. Verse 28, the heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. You think you're going to be thinking about how to answer? When you're thinking about that, when will the Shabbat be over? When will this new month be over? When will we ever go sell and buy and get our gain? You would say that's unjust gain, because you doing it with a false balance. And then you up here trying to judge people with that in your heart. And then you bringing trouble to your own household with all that in your heart. On my day, in my service, when you're actually coming before me. You need to wait for the day to be over before you start thinking about that. Because you know what that does? It opens a gate for Satan to come in. Verse 29, Yahuwah is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. Right? All that came about just from that. Right? Going back to Bereshit chapter 2 and verse 10. He said he did all this about the Ruach. He sent his messengers, his Malak, to keep you in the way. And amazingly, the Malak messengers spoke all these things already. And Yahuwah told them to be fruitful and multiply, and what to do, and how to conduct themselves, and what to eat, and do all these things. And he sent the messengers to do that. Right? And it said right here, going to Bereshit chapter 2, verse 8. Bereshit chapter 2, verse 5. It says, when no bush was in the field was yet in the land, and no small plant in the field had sprung up, for Yahuwah Elohim had not caused it to rain on the land, and there was no man to work the ground. And a mist was going up from the land and was watering the whole face of the ground. Then Yahuwah Elohim formed Adam, man, from the dust of the ground. He formed him from the dust of the ground, the Adama, and Nefach into his nostrils, his Arf, Neshama, Kai, and man became a Kai Nefesh. How he do all that? By the Ruach. He did it by the Ruach. He breathed on them. The breath of life. That's what brings life. Because when you go by a letter, it has no life in you. If you're just reading a letter, it has no life in you if it's not by the Ruach. It has to be by the Ruach. You get what it says. And Yahuwah Elohim, guess what he did after that? In the breath and living creature. And Yahuwah Elohim planted a Gan in Eden in the east. And there he put the man whom he had formed. Why? He did it all by the Ruach. Not according to his flesh. He breathed in his nostrils by the Ruach, and then he planted the garden by the Ruach. And when you plant things and do things by the Ruach, seeds and bearing vegetation and fruits according to the Ruach, because you got to do it according to the Spirit, the Ruach. You know what happens after that? And now you're in the garden. You're not in the garden till you actually are understanding. And it says, and out of the ground Yahuwah Elohim make there spring up every tree that is pleasant in the sight and good for food by the Ruach. By the Ruach. The tree of life, which is in the midst of the Gan, in the center of your body. In the center of your mind. And get what it says, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He said that's the choice. You know, he said, I got choices to make. So you got life, you got the tree of life you can eat from, but then you got the good and evil you can eat from. Right? And the world is full of good and evil. Tawub and Ra. And you gotta discern when you go to the good and evil tree, just like you go to the good and evil supermarket. You know how we go to the supermarket? There's both good in there and there's both evil in there. Is it not? And then you have to go in there with a Ruach type mind to discern between good and evil. Because if you don't, you're going to be bringing something back to your household that's going to mess everybody up. It's just like the man who went into the forest and with all Yahoo, and he went to go get some herbs, and he ended up picking up the wrong herbs and threw it in the pot. And it was poison in the pot. It's the same thing. You got to have your discernment skills up. They say discern between good and evil. But when you go to like a place with all fruits yielding seed, all these things in there, ain't really much. You got discernment. You're going to probably have to touch the fruit. And you still going to have the discernment. You're going to have to touch it, feel it, hold it, look at it, how long it's been in the sun. Right? You got to look at all that before you eat it. Your discernment. How you say? But here we go. I'm get out there. And the tree of life was in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And a river flowed out of the Aydah to water the garden by the Ruach. This is all about the Ruach. And there it divided and became 4 rivers by the Ruach. And the name of the first was Pison. And it says, it is one that flowed around the whole land of Havilah where there was gold. You mean gold to dig up? No, it was in the ground. That gold in the ground is good for the plants. It was good for the plants and the herbs and the things you were eating. It's supposed to stay there. It was supposed to. It ain't done no more though. And it says, and the gold of the land is good. Of that land is good, and bdellium and onyx stones are the. All that stuff is good. Because all these things have healing properties for your body. And get what it also does. The name of the second river was Gihon. It is the one that flowed around the whole land of Chdsh. And the name of the third river was Tigris, which flows from Assyria, and the fourth, the river Euphrates, right? But that's a whole other subject. Then Yahuwah Elohim took the man and put him in the garden to work it and keep it. And Yahuwah Elohim commanded, saying, you may surely eat of the tree of the Gan, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you may not eat of it. For the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. Why? Because you eat of it, and guess what happens? It got good in it, got some good ingredients. You know how you see some things you eat from the store? It got good ingredients. But the other part of it is not good ingredients, and you will surely die, right? This is the Book of Jubilees by Ken Johnson's Book of Jubilees. This is the Book of Jubilees. The Book of Jubilees. The Book of Jubilees, chapter 55. Let's see, chapter 11 and verse 16. Book by Ken Johnson, Jubilees, chapter 11, verse 16. And it says, and the children, Book of Jubilees by Ken Johnson, chapter 11, verse 16. And the child began to understand the errors of the earth, that all went astray after graven images. Wow, we talk about the darkness of errors. And after uncleanness. And his father taught him writings. And he was 2 weeks of years old, and he separated himself from his father, that he might not worship the idols with him. And he began to pray to the Creator of all things, that he might save him from the errors of the children of Adam, and that his portion should not fall into the error after uncleanness and violence. And the seed time came for the sowing of the seed upon the land. And they went forth together to protect their seed against the ravens. And Abraham went forth with those that went, and the child was a lad of 14 years. It says, and a cloud of ravens came to devour the seed. And Abraham ran to meet them before they settled on the ground. Wow. And get what it says. And cried to them before they settled on the ground to devour the seed, and said, descend not, return to the place where you came. And then he proceeded to turn back. And he caused the clouds of the ravens to turn back that day 70 times. And all the ravens throughout all the land where Abraham was, there settled there not so much at one. And all the one were with him throughout all the land, and saw him cry out, and all the ravens turned back. And his name became great in all the land of the Chaldees. Right? All right, skipping over to going back. That was going to verse chapter 10. This is page 49. This is page 49, chapter 11. This is the Book of Jubilees, King Johnson, chapter 10, in verse 11, verse 4. Actually, verse 7. Actually, and Yahuwah, it says actually going 11 and 10 and 7. And Yahuwah our Elohim bade us to bind us all. And the chief of the spirits, Mastama, came and said, Yahuwah Creator, let some of us remain before me. Let some of them remain before me, and let them hearken to my voice. Because Nuach prayed against the demons, right? And it says, and do all that I say unto them. For if some of them are not left to me, I shall not be able to execute the power of my will on the sons of men. For these are for corruption and leading astray before my judgment. For great is the wickedness of the sons of men. And he said, let the 10th part of them remain before him, and let the 9 parts descend into the place of condemnation. Right? So this is the book of verse 10. And one of us he commanded that we should teach Nuach all the medicines. For he knew that they would not walk in the uprightness, nor strive in righteousness. He said, I got to teach you all the medicines. He said, you ain't going to do it. And we did according to all his words. All the malignant evil ones who ones we bound in the place of condemnation, and a 10th part of them we left, that they might be subjected before Satan on earth. And we explained to Nuach. Who explained to Nuach? The messengers by the Ruach. Behold, I send a Malak to keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice, for he will not pardon your transgressions. And we explained to Nuach all the medicines of their diseases, together with their seductions, how he might heal them with the herbs of the earth. And Nuach wrote down all in a book, as we instructed him, concerning every kind of medicine. Thus the evil spirits were preluded from hurting the sons of Nuach. Behold, I send a Malak to keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice, because he's doing it by the Ruach. And get what it says. He said, I make my Malaky Ruach. And he gave him all, and he gave all that he had written to Shem, his eldest son, for he loved him exceedingly above all his sons. He said, so how do you know? He said he loved him exceedingly above all his sons. So what make you think? So what do you think Yahushua was teaching everybody? Right? Right, so this is the book of Matthew. This is the book of Matthew. Actually, let's go to the book of Yuchanan, chapter. Let's go to John. For this reason, so this book of John. Actually, no, let's go to book of Yuchanan. Book of John, chapter 16, verse. Yuchanan, John, chapter 16, verse 25. Yuchanan, 16:25. I have said these things to you in figures of speech. The hour is coming when I will no longer speak with you in figures of speech, but I will tell you plainly about the Father. In that day you will ask whatever you ask in my name, and in that day you will ask in my name, and I do not say to you that I will ask the Father on your behalf, for the Father himself loves you. Why do you think he gave it to Shem? He said I loved you. I love them above all the sons. He said I gave you all the medicine in the book. And get what he said? He, Father, loves you because you have loved me and have believed that I came from Elohim. I came from the Father, and he says, I came from the Father and have come into the world. And now I am leaving the world and going to the Father. His disciples said, now you are speaking plainly and not using figurative of speech. Now we know that you know all that. Now we know that you know all things and do not need anyone question you. Because everybody like to question. This is why we believe that you have came from Elohim. You just said to them, do you now believe? Behold, the hour is coming, indeed it has come, when you will be scattered, each to his own house, and you will leave me alone. Yet I am not alone, for the Father is with me. I said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So he said, why would he do that? He said, I kept a malak to keep you in the way. He said, I sent a malak to keep you in the way, right? And there's a reason why. Right? This is the book of Judges. This is the book of Judges, chapter 15, and verse 1. This is the book of Judges. Yeah, Judges, I think it's 15. Actually, go to Judges 14 and 1. No, that's enough. Go further back. 12. Yeah, Judges 13 and 1. Judges 13 and 1. Judges 13 and 1. And the people of Yasharal again did what was evil in the sight of Yahuwah. So Yahuwah gave them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. There was a certain man of Zorah of the tribe of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. Right? Because how do you have children? He said Yahuwah does it by his voice. But it says right here, and his wife was barren and had no children. And the Malak of Yahuwah appeared to the woman and said to her, behold, you are barren. Behold, I sent a Malak to keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice, for he will not pardon your transgression. And the Malak of Yahuwah appeared to the woman and said to her, behold, you are barren and have not borne, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Therefore be careful, and drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. Behold, I sent him a lot to keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice, for he will not pardon your transgression. Look at what it says. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazar to Yahuwah from the womb, and he shall begin to save Yasharal from the hand of the Philistines. Then the woman came and told her husband. You know, communication. And he says, a man of Elohim came to me, and his appearance was like the appearance of an angel of Malak of Elohim. Very awesome. He said it wasn't, he looked like one. Well, they didn't really know if he was one or not. And guess what happened? I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. But he said to me, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. Why? Because he came in human form. Because they can't transform in human form. They can shapeshift. Now, if they're disobedient a lot, they can do shapeshift and do other things. It all depends which one they are. And guess what happened? So then he said, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. So then drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean, For the child shall be a Nazar to Elohim from the womb to the day of his death. So what do you think you got? She was like, okay. So what's going on here? He said, you shall be a Nazar to the day of your death. And get what it says. And then Manoah prayed to Yahuwah and said, O Yahuwah, please let the men of Elohim whom you sent come again to us and teach us what we are to do with the child who will be born. She said, I already said it. But she needed it again. Because, behold, I sent him a lot to keep you in the way, but ever in the bed's voice, but he said, I need it done again because I'm doubting in my mind. From you proceed all errors and doubts. Yeah, from you. Because he already told her already. But you know how it is. Because the man needed to know. I sent the woman to tell you about him and what he said, but the man let me ask Yahuwah again. The very same thing that Koph did when the woman told him that Yahushua was risen. They were like, hold up. These are idle tales. What are you talking about? And you know what happened? Because I need another witness. Because that's what happened. And Elohim listened to the voice of Manoah because he ain't had to do it. Yahuwah ain't had to send that man again. He already spoke to the bar, and whatever he spoke in, he said, you know what? I'll do it again, just for Manoah, because Manoah, I want you to be one with your wife. He said two become one. I need y'all to be in agreement with this, so I'm gonna do it again. And the Malaky Yahuwah came again to the woman as she sat in the field. But notice he ain't come to the man. Notice that. He gonna come to the man. I prayed to Yahuwah. He said he gonna do it, and Yahuwah hearkened to the voice. He sent it to the woman again. And guess what happened? And she sat in the field, but Manoah, her husband, was not with her, right? Because the vision's only for an appointed time and for the appointed person. And she is the relay of what's gonna happen again. But you see what happened. So the woman ran quickly and told her husband. See, after that, she's like, oh, he back. Let me go run and her. So he don't believe me. So I got to hurry up and go and tell him. So he'll believe me this time. You know how you see something in the sky, you be like, man, what was that? Come see it again. It's back. You know how it is? And guess what happened? That's how it's going to be when Yahushua comes. And guess what it says? So the woman ran quickly and told her husband, behold, the man whom came to me the other day has appeared to me. And Manoah arose and went after his wife. He started running. And came to the man and said to him, are you the man whom spoke to this woman? And he said, I am. And Manoah said, now when your words come true, what is to be the child's manner of life and what is his mission? Because when you start speaking like about Malaky Yahuwah, it's like, hold up, what's going on? Behold, I sent him a lot to keep you in the way. Because there's going to be a mission when he sent a messenger. You get what happened? And the Malaky Yahuwah said to Manoah, of all that I said to the woman, let her be careful. He said, I already told the woman already. He said, whatever I told her, let her be careful. You just make sure you help her out. Make sure she be very careful. You get what happened? She may not eat of anything that comes from the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink or eat any unclean thing. This before your doctor diagnosis. You know, before they give you all them diets, if people say, you know what, this is what you need to do. Make sure you eat this and this and that, and this and this and that, and this and this and that. And he said, man, you already had it in the bar before they even spoke. Before you even came out of the womb. Before you even came out. They already told the woman what to do. He said, these were written for our examples. It says, and all that I command her, let her observe. Let who observe? Let her observe it. Because you got a child on the inside of her. And it's going to deliver her from the Philistines. It's going to deliver you. And your deliverance is based upon what you put in your body. And that's the very same thing when it comes to your own mind. And what you allow content to come into your consciousness. Because that content can corrupt the very thing that's on the inside of you, you know, by the Ruach. And Manoah said to the Malak of Yahuwah, please let us detain you and prepare you a goat for you. And the Malak of Yahuwah said to Manoah, if you detain me, I will not eat of your food. He said, I'm not eating your food, but if you prepare a burnt offering, then offer it to Yahuwah. He's like, I'm not eating your food though. Because you know how the men of Elohim say, I want men of Elohim too. He said, don't eat no food. Don't drink no water in this place. And then what he told him? He said, I'm not eating no food though. Because when you come, he said, don't do it. But if you prepare a burnt offering, then offer it to Yahuwah. For Manoah did not know that he was a Malak of Yahuwah. He ain't know. And Manoah said to the Malak of Yahuwah, what is your name? So that when your words come true, we may honor you. Huh? He's like, hold up. What's your name? You know how they say? You know how people out here saying, man, what's his name? Man, his name. Well, you know who I am? Well, I'm the greatest thing ever. You know how they say? I'm a messenger. I'm the greatest thing ever. He's like, what's your name? That's what people want. That's what people want. When you're a messenger of Malaky Yahuwah, he's like, get what he said. That we may honor you. That's what people do. I want my honor. You know how people say, I want my honor. You know how it says? And the Malaky Yahuwah said to him, why do you ask my name? See, it is wonderful. So Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it on the rock to Yahuwah, on the rock to Yahuwah, because you know the rock is the Father and the Son. To the one who works wonders. To who? On the rock of Yahuwah, to the one who works wonders. Who works wonders? That's what the Malak of Yahuwah said. He said, why you want to know my name? It is wonderful. So then he offered it on the rock, because you know the rock is the Father and the Son. It's a bin. We know that. To the one who makes wonders. The Malak of Yahuwah, they ain't got nothing to do with me. And get what it says. And Manoah and his wife were watching. They were watching. And when the flame went up toward Shamayim from the altar, the Malak of Yahuwah went up in the flame of the altar. And now Manoah and his wife were watching, and they fell on their faces to the ground after they saw that. So who were they worshiping after they did that? They were worshiping the man of Elohim with his name, and what's your name, and his getting some honor of his own. Was they doing that? No. And they fell on their faces to the ground. It says the Malak of Yahuwah appeared no more to Manoah and his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was a Malak of Yahuwah. And Manoah said to his wife, we shall surely die. What happened? For we have seen Elohim. He said, we have seen an Elohim. We have seen who? Right? That word for in Judges chapter 13, verse 22, that word for at the end of that, they said, we have seen God. That's what it says. Let's see. That word for Judges chapter 13 and verse 22. Let me get that right quick. Judges chapter 13, because they put this stuff in. Judges chapter 13, verse 22. They say, we have seen what? We have seen an Elohim. We have seen a God, an Elohim. You know the Elohim? We have seen a God. We have seen him. And he went up in the fire. And it says, but his wife said to him, if Yahuwah had meant to kill us, right? Notice they say, if the Malak's name and his honor, you know, they ain't talk about him, he sought to kill you. No, he said, if Yahuwah had meant to kill us, he would have not accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering at our hands. How do we know that? Because when Cain went to offer his offering, he says, why are you wroth? Because Cain had things in his heart. He said, if you wanted to take us out, he would have never accepted our offering. Which means that by him accepting their offering, that means it was going to come true. That's how you know. That's why when Yahuwah said, anything you ask, anything in my name, it shall be done. Why? Because when you offer your gift on the altar, it's going to be accepted and it's going to come true. So we wave a sheaf offering. He did first fruit after Kak Matzah, then you have another one. every single day. And it says right here, he will not accept the grain at our hands, or shown us all these things. He said, why will Yahuwah show us all this knowledge and understanding, if it ain't gonna come true? Or now, he says, these things, or now announce to us such things as these. He said, why would he do that? You know what happens, he says? And the woman bore a son and called his name Shamshun, like the son. That's what the name means. And the young man grew, and Yahuwah baraked him. You know why she had that son? Because behold, I sent him a lot to keep you in the way. Obeyed his voice. She obeyed what he said. And how to care for the child on the inside. That's why the child was born. And the Yahuwah baraked him, and the Ruach of Yahuwah began to stir him at Mahane Dan, between Zorah and Estro. He said the Ruach began to stir him up. Why? Because the Ruach was giving life to what he said. He's going to deliver them from the Philistines. He said, behold, I sent him a lot to keep you in the way, right? He said, so why is all this happening, right? Right, so this is the book, this is the last couple of things that we've done. Right, this is the last couple of things. Right, so this is the book of Kings. I think it's the Kings. Right, so let's go look at the book of Kings. I think it's Kings chapter 15. Verse 1. Book of Kings. This is the book of Kings, chapter 15 and verse 1. Book of Kings, 1 Kings, chapter 15 and verse 1. 1 Kings, chapter 15, verse 1. Sorry. 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 1. 1 Kings chapter 15 and verse 1. It says, now in the 18th year of King Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, Abijam began to reign over Yehudah. And he reigned for 3 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Abi-Salom. And he walked in all the sins that his father did before him. And his heart was not wholly true to Elohim, to Yahuwah his Elohim, as the heart of David his father. Nevertheless, for David's sake, Yahuwah, it says, Yahuwah's Elohim gave him a lamp in Jerusalem. He gave him a lamp in Jerusalem, setting up his son after him, and established Jerusalem, because David did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, and did not turn aside from anything that he commanded him all the days of his life, except in the matter with Uriah the Hittite. Now there was war between Ramoth and Jeroboam all the days of his life, right? And the rest of the acts of Abijam, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of Chronicles, the kings of Yehudah? And there was war between Abiam and Jeroboam, and Abiam slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David in Asa, and he reigned in his place. Right, so he said they were warring all his life. He said the whole time he was reigning, he was fighting the whole time. So why is this? He says, why is this important? Because when you start to quarrel and fight, it becomes a part of your life. He said it becomes literally a part of your life. And he said they were fighting the whole time. And he said, why would they be fighting the whole time? Right, you go to Ezekiel chapter 18 and verse 1. He said they were fighting the whole time. This is Ezekiel chapter 18, verse 1. The word of Yahuwah came to me. What do you mean by repeating this proverb concerning the land of Yasharal. Just like they be repeating, fighting all the time. He said, why you be repeating this proverb in Yasharal? The fathers have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth is set on edge. He's like, man, they've been fighting the whole time. Jeroboam and Abiam, they were fighting their whole life. The whole time they were reigning. That's all they were doing. Because they did evil in the sight. He said, I'll give you a lamp though, a near, but the only reason I'm doing it because of Dawid and what he did. And yo, what it says. The fathers have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth is set on edge. You say, you see the harvest they're getting? The fruits that they're eating is sour. Right? As I live, declares Yahuwah, this proverb shall be no more used by you in Yasharal. Behold, all souls are mine. The souls of the fathers as well as the souls of the son is mine. The soul that sins shall die. He said, that's who's going to die. If a man is righteous and does what is just and right, if he does not eat upon the mountains or lift up his eyes to the idols of the house of Yasharal, does not defile his neighbor's wife or approach a woman in her menstrual period, impurity, does not oppress anyone, but restores to the debtor his pledge, commits no robbery, gives his bread to the hungry, and covers the naked with a garment, does not lend at interest or take profit. When you look in the perfect law of liberty, as in book spoke about in the book of Jacob, James, withholds his hand from injustice, partiality and judgment, executes true justice between man and man, walks in my statutes, and keeps my rules by acting faithfully. He is righteous. You know, he not righteous. You understand? You're not righteous. He shall surely live, declares Yahuwah Elohim. He said, you're going to live. If he follows a son who is violent, a shedder of blood, who does any of these things, though he himself did not, none of these, who even eats upon the mountains, defiles his neighbor's wife, oppresses the poor and the needy, commits robbery, does not restore the pledge, lifts up his eyes to idols, commits abominations, lends at interest, and takes profit, shall he then live? He shall not live. He has done all these abominations. He shall surely die. His blood be upon himself. He said, so how all this? He said, it's going to be upon you and yourself. Why? Because you see one person, he was choosing what was good. Then you see another person like Nakash. His son was like Nakash. If your son is like Nakash, he himself is going to be, his blood be upon his own head. Because proceed from him all errors and doubts. That's what comes from his heart and his mind. And he be waiting for the Shabbat to be over. And he be waiting for all that, the Ephah making the Ephah salt and shekel grape. And he be taking bribes. Matter of fact, he be bribing his own mom. And you know what happens to that? You would say it'll be upon you. Not on the father. Because you're in the Nakash. Verse 14, now suppose this man follows a son, and he sees all the sins that his fathers had done, and sees and does not do likewise. He does not eat upon the mountains, or lift his eyes to idols, or the house of Yasharal, because Yasharal got a bunch of idols in it. Does not defile his neighbor's wife, does not commit adultery, does not oppress anyone, because once you defile your neighbor's wife, then guess what? It's not right for a man in your code to be with a woman after she's defiled. You see what you just did to the household? It's over with. You just literally destroyed that man's household. So what Yahuwah say you should happen to you? He said you should surely die. You just messed up a whole generation. You just messed up the stability of somebody's own household. And you know what it says? He says, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon him. That's it, going, do not, it says, he said, you follow son, does not defile his neighbor's wife, does not oppress anyone, because adultery, it doesn't matter what age you are. If the woman's married and the man sleeps with her, it don't matter if you're a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 20-year-old, or 40-year-old, 50, 100-year-old man. Doesn't matter. You still adultery. So he was saying, oh, it can't be an adultery in school. Yes, you can. The woman, the teacher married, and you go be seduced by her, and next thing you know, she married, and you commit adultery with her. And you 15, 16, 18, you still adultery. It says, exact no pledges, commits no robbery, but gives his bread to the hungry, and covers the naked with a garment, withholds his hand from the iniquity, takes no interest or profit, obeys my rules, and walks in my statutes, he shall not die for his father's iniquity, he shall surely live. As for his father, because he practiced extortion, robbed his brother, and did what was not good among his people, behold, he shall die for his iniquity. That's how it works. But why is this important? Because when you start looking at the things that people do, he says, so you're going to die for your iniquity. Why would he say that? Because everybody, he said, when these things you start to increase in the land, and you start to increase within yourself, and you start to bear fruit, he said, you want your fruit to remain, then you got to make sure you operate in the bounds, in the laws, and the things that are already established, so you won't actually, nothing happens to your things that you own, the things you have. Because if it does, then you're going to find yourself in some serious trouble. All right, this is 1 Chronicles chapter 21. 1 Chronicles 21. 1 Chronicles chapter 21. 1 Chronicles 21. 1 Chronicles 21. 1 Chronicles 21 and 1. It says, then Satan all stood against Yasharal and incited David to number Yasharal. Why? Because when people start coming against you and fighting with you all the time, you know how it says? People start fighting with you. Then guess what they do? They will try to incite you to do something outside of what Yahuwah has established. Just by them coming at you and fighting. It's like Abijam and Jeroboam and fighting the whole time. When people start to come and fight and try to create a quarrel with you and fighting with you, it's going to create something. And he said he incited Dawid to number Yasharal. So David said to Joab, the commander of the army, go number Yasharal and Beersheba to Dan and bring me a report that I may know their number. And Joab said, may Yahuwah add to his people 100 times as many as they are. Are they not my master? Are they not my master the king? All of them my master's servant. Are they, all of them my master's servants? Why then should my master require this? Why should it be a cause of guilt for Yasharal? But the king's word prevailed against Joab. So Joab departed and went throughout all the land of Yasharal, and came back to Jerusalem. And Joab gave the sum of the numbering of the people to David. In all Yasharal there was 1,100,000 men who drew the sword, and Yehuda 470,000 who drew the sword. But he did not include Louis and Benjamin in the numbering, for the king's commandment was abhorrent to Joab. Right, so he supposed to number Yasharal, but he did not number all Yasharal, Louis and Benjamin. Right, he didn't include them. But Elohim was displeased with this thing, and he struck Yasharal. Why? Why did he do it? But he did not include Louis and Benjamin in the number. But Elohim was displeased at this thing, and he struck Yasharal. And David says to Elohim, I have sinned greatly in that I have done this thing. Why? Because when you do things outside of what Yahuwah says, and then you start to quarreling back and forth, and then you incite somebody else to do it, and you prevail over somebody, and you cause them to do something, and they don't do what Yahuwah says. You say, oh, you number the people, but you ain't include Benjamin and Louis. And then what does that create? It creates friction. And by creating friction, what does it do? And David said, Elohim, I have sinned greatly in that I have done this thing. But now please take away the iniquity of your servant, for I have acted very foolishly. Why? I was acting off my emotions. Right, so that word for incited in First Chronicles chapter 21, it says when Satan incited him. First Chronicles chapter 21, you gotta get that word right quick, and it says, the word is suit. It says suit. That word for incited is suit. Sad, wu, tu. Suit. And it means probably to prick. That is to stimulate. To stimulate. You know how Satan can stimulate you? But it also means to what? Seduce. Seduce. It also means to entice. Did Elohim actually say, you should not eat of every tree of the garden? He enticed them to move, to persuade, to provoke, to remove, to stir up. He said he done soothed him. He said you done hit by a smooth criminal. He said you've been hit by a smooth, emotional manipulator. Now he say Abunalek, Alphonse. All these people work with him. But it's over here, and Satan he's skipping over, going back to verse 8. 1 Chronicles 21 and 8. We're gonna get out of here, and then we're gonna finish. And David said to Elohim, I have sinned greatly in that I have done this thing. But now, please take away the iniquity of your servant, for I have acted very foolishly. And Yahuwah spoke to God, David's seer, saying, go and say to David, thus says Yahuwah. So Yahuwah ain't even talking to him. He's like, you know how you be praying to Yahuwah and be like, Yahuwah, please tell me. And he's like, and he spoke to David's seer. He went all around the whole thing. He said, you know what? God. David's seer, saying, go and say to David, thus says Yahuwah, 3 things I offer you. So he done did all that. He done went around the bush, around the whole thing. You done prayed to Yahuwah. Then Yahuwah send you your answer through somebody else. He said, he said, 3 things I offer you. Choose one of them, that I may do it to you. So God came to David and said to him, thus said Yahuwah, choose what you will. He said, choose it. Either 3 years of famine, or 3 months of devastation by your foes, while the sword of your enemies overtake you, or else 3 days of the sword of Yahuwah, pestilence on the land, with the Malak of Yahuwah destroying. Actually, sorry, let's go back. Verse 11 says, so Gad came to David and said to him, thus says Yahuwah, choose what you will, either 3 years of famine, or 3 months of devastation by your foes, while the sword of your enemies overtake you, or else 3 days of the sword of Yahuwah, pestilence on the land, with the Malak of Yahuwah destroying throughout all the territory of Yasharal. Now decide what answer I shall return to him who sent me. Then Dawid said to God, I am in great distress. Let me fall into the hands of Yahuwah, for his mercy is very great. But do not let me fall into the hands of man, human beings. So Yahuwah sent a pestilence on Yasharal, and 70,000 men of Yasharal fell. Why? Because David disobeyed the Torah, Dawid. Because Satan enticed him to disobey the Torah in numbering the people. He enticed them, just like he did Qahalath in the garden. Why? And then guess what happened? So that Yahuwah sent a pestilence on Yasharal, 70,000 men of Yasharal fell, and Elohim sent the Malak to Jerusalem to destroy it. Behold, I sent a Malak to keep you in the way. Why? You say devastation and destruction by Malaky is going to keep you in the way? Yeah, because it keeps Yahuwah's fear on you. And he says against Jerusalem to destroy it. But as he was about to destroy it, Yahuwah saw that he relented the calamity. He's like, okay, I'm about to destroy Jerusalem. I don't went too far. That's it. And he relented. He repented. And he said to the Malaky Yahuwah, who was working destruction, it is enough. Now stay your hand. He said, stay your hand. You know what happened? And the Malaky Yahuwah was standing in the threshing floor of Onan, the Jebusite. He was standing right there. And guess what happened? And David lifted up his eyes and saw the Malach of Yahuwah standing between the earth and Shany. He said, man, that thing is huge. He said, how you know? Because how did Yahuwah destroy it? We just talked about it. Going to the book of Isaiah, Yeshayahu. Actually, go to the book of Psalm chapter 83. Actually, Psalm chapter 78. Psalm chapter 83. Psalm chapter 83. Psalm chapter 83. He said, so what did David see? He said, I saw Malaky Yahuwah, and it was between such and such. Right, but here we go. Because when you see it, you're going to know it. Psalms 83 and 14. And as a fire consumes a forest, and a flame sets the mountain ablaze, so may you pursue them with your tempest. He said, that's what he saw. When Yahuwah sent his destruction on you, he said, I sent a tempest. He said, what is that? He said, I saw it. And terrified them with your hurricane. He said, I sent a whirlwind. Because that's what he saw. When you say a Malaky Yahuwah, I seen a Malaky Yahuwah. Malaky Yahuwah come in human form, storm form, volcano form, earthquake, wings touching each other. It can come in all types of forms. And yo, what happened? It says, fill their faces with shame that they may seek your name, O Yahuwah. Why do you think he did that? This is the book of Nahum. The book of Nahum, chapter 1 and verse 1. He said, what did he see? Nahum chapter 1, verse 1. And Yahuwah is jealous and avenging Elohim. And Yahuwah is avenging and wrathful. Yahuwah takes vengeance on his adversaries and keeps wrath for his enemies. Yahuwah is slow to anger, great in power. Yahuwah will by no means clear the guilty. Did he clear? He said, I ain't clearing the guilty. I don't care if you're Dawid. I don't care if you're a king, ruler. He said, I don't care who you are. He says, his way is in a whirlwind and a storm, in the clouds and the dust of his feet. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry, and dries up all rivers. The Bashan, Carmel withers, and blooms the Lebanon withers. The mountains quake before him. The hills melt. The earth heaves before him. The world and all who dwells in it. Why? Because that's how he visits the earth. He said, I'm going to shake this earth. He said, I'll shake it. Why do you think David saw it? Behold, I sent him a law to keep you in the way. Beware of men who obey his voice, for he will not pardon your transgressions. Verse 6 says, who can stand before his indignation? Who's going to be able to stand? Rocks fall on us and hide us from him who sits on the face of the throne. Who can endure his heat, the heat of his anger? His wrath is poured out like fire, and the rocks are broken into pieces. Yahuwah is good. A stronghold in the day of trouble, I'd rather fall into the hands of Yahuwah. Why do you think David said that? Dawid. He knows those who take refuge in him. I'd rather fall into the hands of Yahuwah. Don't put me in the hands of man. Man, they do crazy stuff. I'd rather fall in the hands of Yahuwah. But with an overflowing flood, he will make a complete end of his adversaries and will pursue the enemies into darkness. Right? Going back to 1 Chronicles. 1 Chronicles chapter 21. 1 Chronicles chapter 21 and verse... Yeah, going back to verse 12. There you go, verse 10. It says, go and say to David, thus says Yahuwah, here we go. Going to verse 14. And Yahuwah sent pestilence on Yasharal. 70,000 men of Yasharal fell. And Elohim sent his Malach to destroy Malach to Jerusalem to destroy it. But as he was about to destroy it, how you going to destroy Yahuwah? How you going to destroy Jerusalem? Yahuwah saw that and relented in calamity. How will he destroy Jerusalem? Right? How would he do that? So, this 29, Isaiah 29 and 9. Isaiah 29 and 5. But the multitude of the foreign foes shall be like small dust, and the multitude of the ruthless like a passing chaff. In an instant suddenly you will be visited by Yahuwah of hosts with thunder, earthquake, the great noise, the whirlwind, the tempest, and the flames of devouring fire, and the multitude of nations that fight against Ariel. All that fight against her shall be a stronghold in distress, and shall be like a dream of the night. Right, because that's how he comes. But we're gonna get out, we almost finished. Same thing, right? Verse 12. Going back to 1 Chronicles chapter 21. 1 Chronicles chapter 21 and this is how you get out of it. Verse 14. So Yahuwah sent pestilence on Yasharal, 70,000 men of Yasharal fell. Right? He says, so why would he send pestilence on Yasharal? Right, so going that word for 1 Chronicles 21 for pestilence. The word for pestilence is because we gotta get all that. The word for pestilence is deber. Deber. It just says destroying, a pestilence, a plague, or plagues, right? And it says right here, that's what it means. Deber. Right? But it says, and Yahuwah sent pestilence on Yasharal, 70,000 men fell, and Elohim sent a Malak to Jerusalem to destroy it. But as he was about to destroy it, Yahuwah saw, and he relented at the calamity, and he said to the Malak who was destroying, who was working destruction, it is enough. Now stay your hand. And the Malak of Yahuwah was standing in the threshing floor of Ornan in the Jebusite. That's how far as it got. Because he was about to kill more people. And David lifted up his eyes and saw the Malak of Yahuwah standing between the earth and Shamaim. And his hand with a drawn sword stretched out over Jerusalem. Wow, we talked about how he going to draw a sword. He ain't sheathing it again, but you see Yahuwah sheathing it right now. He said, stay your hand. Because you know, when you got soldiers and you're a king and you're Malak, he said, why do you think David told the man that you weren't afraid to touch Yahuwah's anointed? He said, when the young men executed. Why? Because he got a sword and he sheathed it. That's how Yahuwah executes judgment. He has a Malak with a sword, and he keeping away the tree of life, and he trying to show people, this is what happened to you when you don't keep away the tree of life. You know, the tree that's in the midst of your garden. And get what it says. And his hand draw the sword stretched out over Jerusalem. And then David and the elders clothed in sackcloth. He's going to make them black to the ground. That's what he did. He made them black to the ground. You know how people talk about? He made them black to the ground. And guess what? And fell on their faces. And David said to Elohim, was it not I who gave commandment to number the people? It is I who have sinned and done great evil. But these sheep, what have they done? Please let your hand, O Yahuwah my Elohim, be against me and against my father's house, but do not let the plague be on your people. So, you know the sad part is, people ain't gonna say that today. He said, would you say that? You know, once you say something out of your mouth, it's like, oh, blank, right? He said, are you going to say that? Something like that? Now, the Malak of Yahuwah it says, now the Malak of Yahuwah had commanded Gad to say to David. So now the Malak of Yahuwah, the messenger, is still talking. So you got the messenger still there. Now you see a messenger still unlanded when the earth shaking, the earthquake, and the tempest. The Malak's still there, though. He's just waiting to see what people are going to say. And the Malak of Yahuwah, the messenger, came to Gad, commanded Gad to say to David that David should go up and raise an altar to Yahuwah on the threshing floor of Ornan at the Jebusite. So David went up at Gad's word, which he had spoken in the name of Yahuwah. Now Ornan was threshing wheat, and he turned and saw the Malak. And his 4 sons who were with him hid themselves. He said, man, we saw how big that thing was. You know what they did? Man, we saw them a lot, and they hid themselves. So what did they see? Why would you hide yourself from something, a being, after you see it? which means it wasn't looking like what you think. He's like, man, this thing, what in the world? Let me go hide myself from here. What you gonna hide? If you see something that you can't, that you see something and you run away, you hide from it. You gotta be a giant or something. But guess what happened? And David came to Onan, and Onan looked and saw David and went out from the threshing floor and paid homage to David with his face to the ground. David said to Onan, Give me the site of the threshing floor that I may build it on it an altar to Yahuwah. Give it to me at its full price, that the plague may be averted from the people. Then Ornan said to David, Take it, and let my master the king do what seems good to him. See, I give the oxen for burnt offerings and the threshing sledges for the wood and the wheat for a grain offering. I give it all. But King David said to Ornan, No, but I will buy them for full price. I will not take for Yahuwah what is yours, nor offer burnt offerings that cost me nothing. So David paid Ornan 600 shekels of gold by weight for the site, and David built there an altar to Yahuwah and presented burnt offerings and peace offerings, and called on Yahuwah, and Yahuwah answered him with fire from Shamaim upon the altar of the burnt offering. Then Yahuwah commanded the Malaky, and he put his sword back in its sheath. Now you see why Ezekiel said, I've unsheathed my sword. He said, Yahuwah said, I ain't gonna sheath it again. But now you see how you get him back, get the Malaky to sheath the sword back. And at that time, when David saw that Yahuwah had answered him at the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite, he sacrificed there. For the tabernacle of Yahuwah which Meshach had made in the wilderness, and the altar of the burnt offering were at the time in the high place of Gibeon. But David could not go before it to inquire of Elohim, for he was afraid of the sword of the Malaky of Yahuwah. He said, I couldn't go. He said, why would he offer a sacrifice that's not at the tent of Meshach in a place that everybody went to? Right, this is Yehukanan 4:22. Yehukanan 4 and 19. Yehukanan 4 and 19. Yehukanan 4 and 19. John 4 and 19. The woman said to him, Sir, I perceive that you are a Nabi, a prophet. Our fathers worshiping on this mountain, and you say in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship. Okay, you see where everybody was offering that. But then guess what? Was David in Jerusalem? He said, I seen him about to destroy you, and I stopped. I was about to destroy Jerusalem. But he said he wasn't there. And Yahushua said to her, Woman, believe me, the hour is coming, and neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. Because David was scared of the Malaky of Yahuwah. You see all the Malaky of Yahuwah that's landing around the world today? Yahuwah is shaking the earth. They landing everywhere. It's like the Caribbean, it's like the wings touching each other. And the ground is moving. And there's pestilence. And there's earthquakes. And there's volcanic eruptions. And there's famines everywhere. And he said, what? He said, you shall not worship because you ain't afraid of the Malaky of Yahuwah. I'm afraid of your Malaky of Yahuwah. Because when they saw the Malaky of Yahuwah, they hid themselves. His sons, everybody was hiding behind the bush. Everybody was scared. He said, ain't nobody afraid. He said, I ain't afraid of Yahuwah, right? And it says, you worship what you do not know. We know what we worship. For salvation of the Yahudim. But the hour is coming, and now is here, when the true worshipers will worship Yahuwah in Ruach. In Ruach. And in truth. Not in flesh and truth. Not in flesh and truth. And his Father is seeking such to worship him. Behold, I sent a Malaky to keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice, for he will not pardon your transgressions. David, go make an altar. Now we go make an altar and create something and offer to Yahuwah. You get what happened? Ruach in truth. And Yahuwah is Ruach. And those who worship him must worship him in Ruach and in truth. The woman said to him, I know that the Mashiach is coming, When he comes, he will tell us all things. Yahushua said to her, Yahushua said to her, I who speak to you am he. Right, going to Haggai, the book of Haggai. This is the book of Haggai. This is the book of Haggai, chapter 3. Book of Haggai, chapter 2. Kagi, chapter 2, and verse 1. In the 7th month, Haggai, chapter 2, verse 1. In the 7th month, on the 21st day of the month, the word of Yahuwah came to the hands of Haggai, the Nabi. Speak now to Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, the governor of Yehuda. He said, Yahushua, the son of Yosadak, and the High Kahan, and to all the remnant of the people, and say, Who is left among you who saw this house in its former abode? How do you see it now? Is it not as nothing in your eyes? Yet now be strong, Zerubbabel, declares Yahuwah. Be strong, O Yahushua, son of Yosadak, the High Kahan. Be strong, all people of the land. He said, be strong. Why? Declares Yahuwah. Work. He says, of the land, declares Yahuwah. Work, for I am with you. He said, what? Work. Work, for I am with you. Declares Yahuwah of hosts, according to the covenant that I made with you when you came out of Mizraim. My Ruach remains in your midst. It remains in you. Fear not. For thus says Yahuwah of hosts, because the Father seeketh such to worship him. Yet once more, in a little while, it ain't happened yet. You know how I say, it ain't happened yet, but he already told us it's going to happen. In a little while, I will shake the Shamaim and the earth, and the sea and the dry land. He said, in a little while, though. But before that happened, you're going to need to work. You're going to need to work. And I will shake all nations. He said, you're going to need to work before that. So that the treasures of all nations shall come in, and I will fill the house with kabod, says Yahuwah of hosts. The silver is mine and the gold is mine. Because I planted in the garden. We just read. I planted in the garden, and I put Adam in the garden. And I gave him what to do in the garden. And I gave him what to eat. Matter of fact, I made sure the messengers actually told him that. To keep him doing that. Because when they transgressed in the garden, they got cast out of the garden, and he kept that Malaky there to keep the way of the tree alive, to swinging the sword. And he ain't sheathed it. And get what happened? The silver is mine and the gold is mine, declared Yahuwah. Why think he got a guard out in front of the garden? Because all the gold is there. The land, it says, the latter glory of this house shall be greater than the former, says Yahuwah of hosts. And in this place I will give peace, declares Yahuwah of hosts. He said, I'm gonna shake the Shamaim and the earth. He said, I'm gonna do it. And when he does it this time, he said, make sure you work it. And he said, what do you gotta work? Because you say, why do you have to work? He said, I don't know. What do I have to do? Right, this is the book of Philippians. Philippians chapter 2, verse 12. Philippians chapter 2, verse 12. It says, therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now, not only as in my presence, but much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is Elohim who works in you. He said, my Ruach ain't going to depart out of you. It's in your midst. Both to will and to work for his good pleasure. He said, you're going to have to work. Be strong and work. Do all things without grumbling or disputing, that you may be blameless and innocent, children of Yahuwah without blemish in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast the word of life, so that in the day of Mashiach I may be proud that I did not run in vain or labor in vain. He said, you got to work. He said, so why is this important? Because it's important. Right, this is Hebrews, I believe, chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 19. Actually, Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 18. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 18. For you have not come to what may be touched, a blazing fire and darkness and gloom and tempest, and the sound of a Turah, and a voice whose words make the hearers beg that no further message be spoken to them. Say what? He said they begged. And you know what happened? For they could not endure the order that was given. If even a beast touches the mountain, it shall be stoned. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Mashah said, I tremble with fear. Why do you think them people hid behind the bushes and things when the Malak appeared to David? When Gad and his son, they saw him, they like, man, they hid themselves. But you have come to Mount Saun, to the city of the living Elohim, the heavenly Jerusalem, by the Ruach. You know the Ruach? You know the Ruach? The one you can't, you know, Jerusalem above, the one you can't see. And get what it says. And innumerable Malakim in the festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in Shamayim, you know, the Jerusalem above, by the Ruach, and to Elohim that judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Yahusha the mediator of a new Berit, and to the sprinkling of the blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. Above. See that you do not refuse him who is speaking. Why? Because when Abel's blood cried from the ground, he said, this blood is way more than that. For if they, he said, see that you do not refuse him who is speaking. Why? Because behold, I send a Malak to keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice. For he will not pardon your transgressions and your sin. Why do you think he said beware? He said, make sure you do not refuse him who is speaking, the messenger. You know what he says? For if they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on the earth, much less will we escape if we reject him who warns from the Shamayims. Where did that Malak come from? To execute judgment on David, and destroy his house. Where did Malak come from to tell Manoah about the birth of her child? Where did that Malak come from that warned the children of Yahshua to keep him in the way? Where did the Malak come from? They came from the Shamayims, from the Ruach. And get what it says. At that time, the voice shook the earth. It did what? We just read it in Baruch. He said he's going to shake the whole creation. Who voiced that you think they're going to do? Like, when it shake the earth, they're like, yeah, you know, it shook one part or a little area. When Yahuwah really get to shake this place, he said, when Yahuwah started utter, he's going to shake the Shabath, Shamayim, the Rakia, the surface of the earth, the center of the earth. He's going to shake everything. In that time, his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the Shamayim. This phrase, yet once more, indicates the removal of things that are shaken. That is, things that have been made in order that the things that cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken. Because he said, what did we just read in 2nd Rule? He said, I'm going to protect those who are in the land. Didn't we just read that? You think he was talking about something physical? He's talking about your ruach. This is inward man. You can't shake it. It's not going to be shaken. Because you're born, you're in the Jerusalem above, in Shamayim. You get what it says? That's the only thing that's not going to be shaken. But everything else is going to shake. And you get what it says? Therefore, let us be grateful in receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken. And thus, let us offer to Elohim acceptable worship. Why do you think all the people, Yahuwah will not destroy us if he's going to accept our offering. When David offered up, Yahuwah sheathed the Malaky. He sheathed his sword. Thus, let us offer to Yahuwah acceptable worship with reverence and awe. For our Elohim is a what? Is a consuming fire. How did they know that? Because they knew Yeshayahu. They knew Nahum. They knew it's like flaming fire. He knew Abrakub Qahalath Ruah. They knew Psalms 104. They knew all this stuff. He said he is a consuming fire. Right? Last two things and we finish, right? This is the last two things, right? Right, so this is the book of Ezekiel, Yakaziel, Ezekiel chapter. Actually, let's go here. All right, this is pseudepigrapha. This pseudepigrapha. This is volume 2, pseudepigrapha volume 2, pseudo. This pseudepigrapha, the Book of Jubilees. Pseudepigrapha, Book of Jubilees. Volume 2, pseudepigrapha, Book of Jubilees. Pseudepigrapha, Book of Jubilees, chapter. Book of Jubilees, chapter 14, chapter 9. Pseudepigrapha, Book of Jubilees, volume 2. So now let's go over here. Yeah, this Book of Jubilees, chapter 9, actually chapter, what's that? Chapter 30. Yeah. Book of Jubilees, chapter 30, and verse, chapter 30. Yeah, Book of Jubilees, chapter 30, and verse 1. Book of Jubilees, chapter 30, verse 1. And in the first year of the 6th week, when he went to Salem, which is east of Shechem, in peace in the 4th month, and there Dinah, the daughter of Yaakov, was snatched away in the house of Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the ruler of the land. He lay with her and defiled her, and she was little, only 12 years old. That's what it says here. And he begged his father and her brothers that she be given to him as a wife. But Yaakov and his sons were angry at the men of Shechem because they defiled Dinah, their sister. And they spoke treacherously with them and defrauded them and seduced them. And Simeon and Lewi entered Shechem suddenly, and they executed judgment upon all the men of Shechem and killed every man they found therein that did not leave in even one. And they killed every one painfully because they had polluted Dinah, their sister. And therefore let nothing like this be done henceforth to defile the daughter of Yasharal, because the judgment was ordered in Shamayim. Where? He said, you are part of a what? A Shamayim Jerusalem. The heavenly Jerusalem. You know what happens when Yahushua get back here? What do you think is gonna happen to you if you've done this? and you never got punished for it. And get what he says. Henceforth defile a daughter in Yasharal, because judgment was ordered in Shamayim against them, that they might annihilate with a sword all the men of Shechem, because they had caused shame in Yasharal. And Yahuwah handed them over into the hand of the sons of Yaakov, so they might destroy them with the sword and execute judgment against them, so that nothing like this might therefore happen in Yasharal and defile in Israelite virgin in Yasharal. He said, so what do you think all this is for? He said, you're a part of the Shamayim king. Right? But all this is a prelude, right? All this is a prelude, right? So this is a Nazarene Acts of the Shalakim. 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 And chapter, this page 186. 186. Chapter XXVI. The germination of seeds. Nazarene Acts of the Shalakim, the germination of seeds. And what occasion is there to mention more instances in which Yahuwah has ordained the production of animals to be effected in various ways? That order being superseded, that is thought to be assigned by nature, from which not an irrational course of things, but one arranged by his own reason, might be evinced. And in this also is there not a full work of providence shown, when seeds sown are prepared by means of earth and water and sustenance of men. For when these seeds are committed to the earth, the soil milks upon the seeds as from its teats, and moisture that it has received into itself by the will of Elohim. For there is in water a certain power of the Ruach, given by Elohim from the beginning. Because we are talking about the Ruach, bearing fruit by the Ruach, by whose operation the structure of the body that is to be begins to be formed in the seed itself, to be developed by means of the blade and then the ear. For the grain of the seed being swelled by moisture, the power of the Ruach that has made to reside in water, running as a incorporeal substance through certain narrow passages of veins, excites the seed to grow, and forms the species of the growing plants. By means, therefore, of the moist elements in which the vital Ruach is contained and inborn, it is caused that not only it is revived, but also that in appearance and form, in all respects, like to the seeds that have been sown, is reproduced. Why do you think he comes in and you see him uprooting all of the trees and the remnants of one act, of one person, a ruler, and executing judgment on everyone because of one person? Why? Because if he doesn't do that, it's going to reproduce. Because if I allow people to get away with it, it's going to reproduce. If people continue to do it and I don't send them a lot to destroy it, it's going to reproduce. And then other people are going to copy it. Because you know how people copy other people and live vicariously through other people? As soon as they see you do it, and you know what happens? Then everybody mimics what you do. And by mimicking what you do, if I don't actually destroy every single thing, it's gonna reproduce. You ever seen a weed or a remnant of something? How do you think the giants came back? How do you think Nephilim came back? How do you think all these things came back to be? How do you think everything came back? Because it was water that came, and then for some reason everything started springing back up. And then this time we used fire this time. Last time it ain't work. This is all sprung back up. It got fruit and everything on the tree now. All this behaviors and stuff. So Yahuwah like, you get what it says. Now, who that has even a particle of sense will think that this method depends upon irrational nature and not upon divine wisdom? Lastly, also, these things are done in a resemblance of the birth of men. How do you think it continues on through generations? Why do you think he got to eradicate a whole generation? He said, well, I have to get rid of everything. And get what happens? For the earth seems to take the place of the womb. In which the seed being cast is both formed and nourished by the power of water and ruach. That's how. By water and ruach. As we have said before. Right, so this is the last thing in the So this is the book of John, or Matthew. Let's go to Yuchanan chapter 3, verse 1. Yuchanan chapter 3, verse 1. Now there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Yahudim. This man came to Yahushua by night and said to him, Teacher, we know that you are a teacher come from Elohim, for no one can do these signs that you do unless Elohim is with him. Behold, I sent him a lot to keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice. For he will not try you. Actually, Yahushua did pardon your transgression. But when he come back a second time, Nicodemus said to him, it says, unless Elohim be with him, Yahushua said to him, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the Malkut of Shany. He said, you got to be born again. He said, you won't be able to see the kingdom. Nicodemus said to him, how can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter the second time into his mother's womb? He said, I liken the earth to the womb. It's like a wound of a woman. You know that water that we see, that people see? All that's a part, he said, that's a part of the wound of a woman. And get what it says. Can he enter the second time in his mother's womb and be born? You get what it says. And you should answer, truly I say to you, unless one is born of water and ruach, spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of Yahuwah. Why? Because when the seed is sown, it becomes moist inside, and it generates the stall, and it creates inside of the womb. You can't see it. And then it is born into the world. The same way when things are born into this world. When things are born into this world, these things produce inside of people, and water and ruach give strength to it. Plants are born by the ruach. You don't see where they come from. Just like you don't see where things come from. Like you plant a seed in the ground, something happens under the ground. You gotta watch it. Some people sit there and put a camera on it and try to figure out how it happened. They see the roots come down, but they don't know how it happened. It's all about the ruach. They can't see every single component. The Malaky comes in and strips the seed away and then formulates and it creates an electric charge and all that. They got these ways of explaining it, but they can't. Then it sprouts a leaf up and then it comes up. And amazing, when Yahuwah did give man the seed, herb eating seed with fruits, it was all about a ruach that he said that. It was all about the ruach. Why do you think trees rejuvenate themselves after you cut a branch off? Or they get bigger after you cut something off? Or you take a branch and you plant it in the ground and they grow back? Why do you think it does that? Why do you think you got root and stalk? He said you got to get rid of everything. But when you leave the stump, it can grow back. But if you just wipe out the whole field, then it's different. He said, truly I say to you, unless one is born of water and ruach, he cannot enter the Malkut. Why? You're going to have to grow. That which is born of flesh is flesh. That's flesh. But guess what happens? And that which is born of ruach is ruach. You got to be born of the ruach. Everything has to be done by the ruach, the inward man, the ruach, things you can't see. And yet what happens? Do not marvel, I said you must be born again. Because you know why? You know how you know you're born again? Do you look at a plant the same way like you did before? Do you look at a seed when it's sown the same way? Then you still by the flesh. You have to look at it according to the rule. And you know what happens? He says, do not marvel at this, I say you must be born again. The wind blows where it wishes. Why? It goes where it wants. And you hear the sound, but you do not know where it comes from and where it goes. Just like you. He said it's just like the Ruach. Just like he talked about, he make his Malaky, his messengers like the wind, like the Ruach. His messengers are like the wind. But you do not know where it comes from, where it goes. So it is everyone who is born of the Ruach. It's unseen. You go outside, you allow the wind to hit you, and it blows against the top of the trees. Because you know the trees are strong, but it's the actual feminine nature that allows the actual trees on the top to move and wave in the wind. But it says, Nicodemus said to him, "How can these things be?" Yahushua answered him, "Are you a teacher in Yashral, and yet you do not understand these things? You don't understand the Ruach? How are you a teacher and you don't understand the Ruach? You don't understand how it works." Truly I say to you, we speak of what we know and bear witness to what we have seen, but you do not receive our testimony. He said you don't receive because you still of the flesh. Because you trying to perceive, how can a man enter his mother's womb, not even understanding the very things that the earth that you stand on is like the womb. And you say, why here are you immersed in water? And get what it says. He said, if I have told you earthly things and you do not believe me. He said, you don't even understand that. You feel the wind blowing against you, right? You understand the water and ruach. You understand the water. You understand water and you understand wind. If you can understand water and ruach, water and wind, you can see that, you can feel that naturally. Then how come you can't understand the ruach and water? These things are used to make things grow and to make seeds scatter. You know how seeds scatter? And it says right here, if I have told you earthly things you do not believe, how can you believe if I told you Shamayim things? Because this is Jerusalem above. We are part of a heavenly Jerusalem, a Shamayim Yerushalayim. Right? It's in Jerusalem above. I'm trying to tell you about how you gonna understand Jerusalem above. You can't even understand what I just said about Jerusalem right here. You know, the things that people forsook. Yahushua talking about natural thing, a wind. And he's talking about people afraid to go out. He said the wind, they on your skin, the water that flows from the Shamayims and the rivers that flow. You know what it says? No one has ascended into Shamayim except he who descended from Shamayim, the son of Adam. Why? Because it's a Jerusalem above. Yahushua came from the Jerusalem above. He says, and as Mashah lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the son of man, Adam, be lifted up. Whoever believes in him will have eternal life. Right? So all that's a part of it. Right? So this is the last thing. This is this is the book of Romans chapter 6, verse 1. Romans chapter 6, verse 1. It says, what shall we say then? Are we to continue in sin that crime may abound? By no means. How can we who died to sin still live in it? For he will not pardon your transgressions. Beware and obey his voice. Well, he's not going to pardon your transgressions, right? You know what he said? Do you not know that all of us who are immersed into Mashiach were immersed into his death? Why? We were buried, therefore, with him by immersion into death, into water. Just like going into the womb again. In order that just as Mashiach was raised from the dead by the Kabbalah of the Father, we too might walk in newness of life. For if we have been united with him in a death like his, we shall certainly, he said, you know why he says certainly? Because he don't want no doubts in your mind and deceiving yourself. Certainly be united with him in a resurrection like his. We know that our old self was crucified with him in order that the body of sin might be brought to nothing, so that we would no longer be enslaved to our flesh. That's what sin is. You are enslaved to your flesh. But guess what happens? For one who has died has been set free from sin. He said you looked into the Turah of liberty. You've been set free from your flesh. Because it's sin. Or you're just going to be enticed again. Yeah, what happens? Now, if we have died with Mashiach, we believe that we also live with him. We know that Mashiach, being raised from the dead, will never die again. He's like, I'm not dying again. Death no longer has dominion over him. For death, he died to sin, once and for all. But the life he lives to Yahuwah Elohim. So, you also must consider yourselves dead to sin and alive to Yahuwah in Mashiach Yahusha, right? He said, and alive to him, right? He said, you got to consider yourself alive to him, right? Consider yourself alive to him, right? Right, it's the Dead Sea Scrolls, column 6, 4Q 257. These are the paths in the world to enlighten the heart of men. Straighten out in front of him all the paths of true justice, establishing in his heart respect for the precepts of Elohim and the Ruach of meekness, because he got to be done by we talk about the meekness. He said, receive the engrafted word with meekness. In the Ruach of patience and generous compassion, eternal goodness, intelligence, understanding, potent wisdom, which trusts in all the deeds of Elohim and depends on his abundant mercy. A ruach of knowledge in all plans of action, an enthusiasm in decrees of justice and set apart plans and firm purpose of generous compassion with all the sons of truth, magnificent purity that detests all unclean idols. These are all the errors that Abraham saw. Of careful behavior of wisdom concerning everything, concealment of the truth, of the mysteries, of the knowledge. These are the foundations of the Ruachs of the sons of truth in the world. And the reward of those who walk in it will be healing. Because you're going to have freedom. You're going to be free from sin. You're going to have self-control. You're going to be free from your flesh. You're going to be free from it controlling you. And guess what happens? It will be healing, plentiful peace, and long life, fruitful offspring with an everlasting barak, eternal enjoyment and endless life, and a crown of kabod and majestic raiment and eternal life. However, the ruach, the spirit of deceit, belongs greed. We just talked about it in Nazarene. He said, you gathering all this stuff way beyond your means. You don't even need it. But yet you want to throw a person in prison for stealing a loaf of bread, and you are more of a thief than him. To satisfy his hunger. Greed, sluggishness in the service of justice. That's Ezekiel. We read it in Qahalath 18. He said, you execute true justice between man and man. But they not here. Wickedness. Because they know what they're making the ephah saw and the shekel great. Everybody on there worried about all these things. Worried about when the Shabath going to be over. And they up here trying to do my service. Worried about that. Wickedness, falsehood, pride, haughtiness of heart, dishonesty, trickery, cruelty, much insecurity, impatience. That's what happened to David. He was enticed by Satan. Much foolishness, impudent enthusiasm for appalling acts performed in a lustful passion. When you lose patience, You know what happens? Filthy past in the service of impurity, blasphemous tongue, blindness of eyes, hardness of hearing, stiffness of neck, hardness of heart, in order to walk in the paths of darkness and evil cunning. He said, in craftiness, enticing, in darkness in your mind, in the darkness of errors, because you are Chdsh. You are the serpent in the garden, or you've been bit by a smooth serpent. And you don't know it. He said, I've been bit. He said, you've been bit. You probably were bit on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, at the grocery store, at the supermarket, at the gym. Probably were bit at midnight, 3rd hour, 9th hour, 8th watch, 2nd and 3rd watch. Probably were bit. You don't know it. And the visitation of those who walk in it will be abundance of afflictions of the hand of the Malaky of destruction. Why do you think Dawid was like, man? They saw the Malaky of destruction, they hid themselves. They were like, ooh, let me hide myself behind it. He said it was reaching the Shany earth. He said, I saw it too. He's like, man, let me hide myself. And they were hit in fear. It's a Malaky of destruction. You know, and get what happened? Of eternal damnation by scorching wrath and the Elohim that revenges, but permanent terror and shame. It wasn't permanent because he offered something on the altar. Without end and humiliation of destruction by the fire of the dark regions. In all the ages of generations, they shall spend in bitter weeping and harsh evils in the abyss of the darkness until destruction, without there being a remnant or survivor for them. Right? All that's a part of it. But even with that, Aleph Yukanan 2:24. Aleph Yukanan 2:24-28. Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you. He said, why are we always going here? Because he said, behold, I sent him a lot to keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice. But he would not pardon your transgression. He did it for Adam. He sent messengers, Ruach messengers, to keep Adam in the way. Even put him in the garden by the Ruach. Even had 4 rivers come out of the garden by the Ruach. And gave him what to eat in the garden by the Ruach. You know what happened? Today you hear his voice, harden not your heart. You know what happened? They hardened their heart. Their heart got hardened. And you know what happened after that? They got cast out the garden. And then he had the stain, he had the Malaky swinging the sword. He said, today if you hear his voice, harden not your heart. Behold, I sent him a lot to keep you in the way. Why do you think the people hardened their heart to Yahushua when he was here? He said, you are your father Satan. You are your father Chdsh. Satan. You come out from the seed of serpents and venomous vipers. You are that ancient serpent, error and doubt. That's why he said it to them. He said, if you heard from the beginning abide in you, and he says, then you too will abide in the Son, the and the Son, the life of the house, and the Father, the strength of the house. The Father and the Son, the stone. You know, the stone that they offered up that offering to, the Manoah offered that offering to Yahuwah, and the test that he was a Malaky Yahuwah. They put it on the Father and the Son. He said, and his wife said, why would Yahuwah destroy us if he accepted our offering? Because that's what the Father and the Son is. Because that's what you're offering on. Because upon this rock, I'm going to build my congregation, and the gates of Sheol will not prevail against it. He said, then you too will abide in the Father and the Son. And this is the promise he has made to us, eternal life. By the Ruach. I write these things about those who are trying to deceive you. Because you know why they're trying to deceive you? Because they transformed themselves into Malaky of light. But they're not Malaky of light. They are ministers of Satan. Because when you become a messenger of Yahuwah, and then you start to go and deceiving yourself and not being a doer of the bar, and then you have errors in your mind, then you become a Malaky of Satan. You become a Malaky of Satan. Satan'al, and Mustama, and Abunala, and Alphras, and Aldi, and Adal, and Akoros, and Aktun, and Ataf, and Bakan. You become like them. You become like Abihu. You become like these beings. You will literally turn into succubus and incubus. You will literally turn. You know how they talk about people turning into werewolves and shape-shifting and shape-shifting and transforming themselves, or people shape-shifting into like other beings. you literally will shapeshift into whatever you mimic. Whatever you set your mind and become a part of. So if you set your mind and you'll focus on that, you will shapeshift into that being. And you will be a liar. And you will not be righteous. And you will go against everything Ezekiel told you, Akaziah, and many other things. And then you'll be Nakash, Kakash in the garden. And the only thing you're going to be doing is trying to devour everybody and everything. Because, you know why? Because that's all you're made to do is devour. Your whole work and labor is to devour people. Right? And if you say, why would he say that? Because you're going to be consumed one of another, right? And that's the whole point. That's why Jeroboam and Abiam were fighting the whole time. Like, they did that. They were doing evil in the sight, but they gave them a lamp, though. But they were fighting the whole time. He said, why? Because that was their portion in this life. And that's what people want to do. He's like, I don't want to do that. He's like, no, I don't want to do that. Because once you start to engage in that, then it becomes a part of you. And it becomes like, ugh. It creates this yucky, this disgusting feeling in your mind. And then it takes down all your walls and your breaches on the things that you were fighting against and trying to keep Satan from and trying to rise up in you. And then those things start to rise up in you again. Because you're fighting with things and you're not paying attention to yourself anymore. This is Galatians 5:13 real quick. For you were called to freedom. Brothers and sisters, only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh. Why? Because you call it freedom from these things. But through love, serve one another. For the whole Torah is fulfilled in one word. You shall love your neighbor, you love yourself. But if you bite and devour one another, you kakash and nakash. Watch out, lest you are consumed one of another. You end up killing each other. He said you end up destroying each other. Destroying your mind, your peace, your tranquility, your love, your relationships, your finances, your money. You end up destroying people's lives, reputation. You end up destroying everything. All just your biting and devouring. Because doing it according to the flesh. Verse 26, I write these things about those who are trying to deceive you. Nakash and Nakash. But the anointing you receive from him abides in you, and you have no need that anyone should teach you. Why do you think? He said, you have no need. But as his anointing teaches you about everything and is true and is no lie, just as it has taught you, abide in him. And now, little children, abide in him, so that when he appears, you may have confidence. He said, I got confidence. Why? And not shrink from him in shame at his coming. Why? Because what's going to happen when you shrink in shame? He said, I'm going to shrink in shame at his coming, because he's going to come, he's going to show up, and you're going to shrink in shame because you did some things wrong. You're going to shrink in shame because you did some things wrong. Because it's like, man, he's here. And I know he's going to judge me. And I did some things wrong. And I don't know how to, and now I don't have time to get it right. But now guess what we do? You have time to get it right. You have time to make things right. But that's the whole point. You want to make things right. Right? So this is the he said you want to make things right. And he said, how do you make things right? How do you make things right? Right? So this is the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verse 18. How do you make things right? Bereshit chapter 3, verse 22. This is how you make things right. Then Yahuwah Elohim said, behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He said, how are you going to make things right? Now, lest he reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat, he will live forever. How you going to get eternal life? How is you going to get it? So how are you going to be able to get eternal life? We just read it in Haggai. He said you're going to have to work. He said be strong too. He said be strong because you're going to have to work. Work out your own salvation. You know what he told Adam? He says, now let's reach out his hand and take from the tree of life and live forever. Therefore, Elohim sent him out of the Gan of Eden to work the ground from which? To work. That's how you're going to get an eternal life. That's how you're going to get it. You're You're going to have to work. That's how you're going to get it. And not according to the flesh, though. You can't work according to the flesh. You got to work according to the Ruach. It says, therefore, Yahuwah Elohim sent him out of the Gan of Aydah to work the ground from which he was taken, and drove out the Adam. And at the east of the Gan of Eden, he placed the cherubim with the flaming sword, turning to keep the guard away of the tree of life. Right, so we look at all that. Look at Yahushua Mashiach. Look at the light of life. We look at the understanding of his truth. We look at the light of truth. We look at a Malaky. He said, "God, I sent a Malaky to keep you in the way." He said, beware of him and obey his voice, for he will not pardon your sins and your transgressions. But we look at ourselves, we look at our inward man, we look at our inward being. We look at our inward understanding of who we are in the image and likeness of Yahuwah, and to walk in newness of life, not in the old nature, in the old way, in the old life, in the old sacrifice, in the old way of doing things, but in the new, in a better way. Not according to our own flesh and our own will, but to be obedient to Yahuwah Elohim, our Father, in the highest Shamayim, and to walk in his abundance. And then he said, so we may get healing, plentiful peace, long life, majestic raiment, and eternal life. But in order to get that, one must work the ground, and to till the ground inside of your own body, in your own mind. And you must work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For we look at ourselves, and we look at our inward being, we look at our inward thoughts, and we say we walk in love. For there's a day going to come when Yahuwah, not only once more, he's going to shake the earth, but he's going to shake the Shamayims too. And we look at ourselves, all these things that's going to take place, signifying the things that are going to be removed, even ourselves. But there's a kingdom in the highest Shamayim that cannot be moved. That's a heavenly Jerusalem, the one that cannot be shaken. So we look at ourselves, we look at our inward being. For Barak al-Day that hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. And Barak al-Day, Barak al the meek, right? Because he's going to beautify the meek with salvation. And he said, receive this, the bar, wisdom and understanding, with meekness, the implanted word. For the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek shall inherit the earth.